Today, we become legends.
Hey, my name's Inter, welcome back to the channel. Today we have a bunch of matchmaking related things for Smite 2. They're going to be like overhauling the entire matchmaking system essentially. There's going to be cool new stuff like role preferencing, so you should get your least favorite role way less often and all that kind of stuff. And we've got a deep dive to go over here and also some Twitter threads as well to explain it in a little bit more detail. But yeah, without further ado, let's jump in.
Hi, I'm Max, and I'm a data analyst at Titanforge Studios. And I'm one of the people working on Smite 2's matchmaking system. With Smite 2, we've been hard at work to make the entire matchmaking system a strict improvement over Smite 1. The way that we're trying to do that is simple. There's been over a decade since Smite 1 launched, and in that time, there's been more research into matchmaking systems and statistics. There's been over a decade of feedback that we've collected on our matchmaking system, and we're trying to incorporate all of that to create a strictly improved system that also has a bit of creativity in its design to specifically address the needs of Smite. The first one is that we've completely overhauled the role preference system. In Smite 2, players will have the ability to rank the roles 1 through 5. That way, we have a more informed look of what players want, or maybe more importantly, don't want to play. We anticipate that this system will have a huge impact on letting players play their most preferred roles more often, and almost more importantly, play their least preferred roles way less often.
And so yeah, they've got a graph here basically explaining this. So in general, in Smite 2, you should be playing your least preferred role way less often because you can actually specify what your least preferred role is. Obviously in Smite 1, you specify your most favorite role and your second most favorite role, but the other three are just whatever. You'll get also-filled them randomly. Whereas in Smite 2, when you can rank them all 1 through 5, like for example with me, I'll probably rank them like solo, jungle, mid, support, ADC. ADC is my least favorite role and the one I'm worst at. And while it doesn't seem like there'll be a major difference in terms of getting your primary role, because that's still handled quite well in Smite 1. You can obviously specify what your primary role is. Basically, the black here is the current role assignment method from Smite 1, and then the blue and red are two different sort of algorithms they've been trying in Smite 2. And so you can see it's not going to be a massive difference in terms of getting your main role. The red one is a pretty significant bump up, the blue one's about the same. But as you move down towards like role 5 down here, you can see in Smite 1, with Smite 1's system, it'd be like 9.4% of the time you will get role 5, whereas in Smite 2's it's 1.2 or 2.3, so in that like 1 to 2% range. And that is of course far less often, you know, that's like almost 1/5 as often that you will get your least favorite role in Smite 2 compared to Smite 1. And I feel like this is generally going to be pretty good because I feel like most people that are decent at Smite will generally only have one role that they really don't want to play. Like for me, it's ADC, as I mentioned. I don't really mind playing support all that much. I don't prefer it or anything. That's why it'd be a role 4 for me, but ADC is the one I really don't want to get put in. And so you're going to get that way less often. I think one thing that could potentially throw a spanner in the works of this whole system is the fact that like probably at least half, if not more, maybe like 60, 70, maybe even 80% of Smite players will just put support as their role 5. And so when you have that many people, I'm not sure what the actual percentage will be. I mean, Max probably has numbers on that. He's got all the data. But, you know, even if that's half of people that have support as their role 5, which might honestly be underestimating a little bit. I know a lot of people really don't like playing support and would not want it. But even with 50%, you know, it's pretty likely that you will get a lobby where it's created and every single person in that lobby has support as their role 5 and it has to give it to someone. And therefore, you probably still will end up getting auto-filled support quite often if support is your role 5. And also, like in my specific case, where support will be my role 4, I will probably also get support very often, even though it's my role 4, because a lot of the time, like, you will create a lobby and everyone except me will have support as role 5, for example, and mine is role 4, and therefore it will give it to me. So I do think the fact that support will be by far the least wanted role will throw a spanner in the works of this. Like, this kind of system would work amazing if every role was wanted about the same amount across the average player base. But the problem is it's not, you know, ADC is probably the 4th most, but even ADC will be miles ahead of support in terms of the amount of people that really don't want ADC. And so either they would have to extend queue times while they wait for someone that isn't role 5 support, and then they create a game with that person. You know, like for example, if everyone in the queue at the moment was role 5 support, it's not made a game yet, and I join the queue as role 4 support, it might then create a game and give me support, which could extend queue times, or it will just create a game anyway. You know, obviously at some point with matchmaking, you have to draw a hard line and just say, fuck it, we're creating a game now. We're not letting these queues go on any longer, even if it's not an ideal game. And that's something you just have to do with matchmaking. matchmaking, unfortunately. You don't want people sat in queues for like 20 minutes. And so at that point, maybe it does just create a lobby and it gives someone that has support role 5. And I feel like that's going to be way more often. Whereas like someone who has a different role 5 that isn't support, you'll probably get that way less often, because it's very highly likely that someone in that lobby has that role at least higher than role 5. So, you know, when I put like ADC as my role 5, I'll probably get that very, very infrequently, honestly, because there'll be someone on my team that has ADC higher than role 5 a lot of the time. Whereas if your role 5 is support, you know, it's going to be much more likely that you get filled that, I would imagine, because it's also much more likely that everyone on your team has support as role 5 and it has to give it to someone. So I think support will be a bit of an interesting case with this one. We'll have to see. But overall, I really do like this system. I think it's great. I think being able to rank them in perfect order is just going to overall get you a better experience. And it should get you a really most hated role much less often in Smite 2.
And speaking of roles, we have a brand new style of matchmaking that we're looking to implement in Smite 2. In traditional matchmaking systems, a player is given a single primary skill value. This primary skill value was effective for the first games that matchmaking systems were made for, shooter games, but for a MOBA, we found that this is a little too simplistic. So instead, we've introduced a system that we call MOBA-specific matchmaking, or role-aware matchmaking. The way that this system works is that it treats the players as the complex individuals they are, with one primary skill rating, and then a vast array of ratings depending on the roles that they play and their skill at those specific roles.
Yeah, so this is the other major thing that they're bringing alongside the like role ranking preference system. Essentially, you're going to have, I assume these ratings will be hidden, but you're going to have a rating for each role that is independent of each other. And then probably all of your ratings for each role will average out into your primary rating, which will be the one that you see on your actual like profile page. But yeah, this is really great as well. In fact, this might even be better than the previous system, because now, like, for example, with my least favorite role being ADC, it's also my worst role. Not only will I get ADC less often in Smite 2, which is nice, I will also get games where I do get filled into ADC. I'll be in a lobby that is more representative of my skill at ADC, because I play Smite a lot. I play it for a living. I'm pretty good at it, but there's still a pretty big difference between my worst role and my best role. You know, my solo is my best role. I play solo at a master's level, definitely. But then as you work your way down, you know, I probably play jungle at a master's level as well, and then like my mid and support might be at like a diamond level, and then my ADC is probably like a platinum level. And so like, if I get put into ADC in a master's lobby, you know, if my overall rating is masters and I get put in ADC, that's just going to be a bad time for everyone. I'm going to feed my brains out because I will not be able to win lane or like do anything against a Masters ADC player that completely body me. And so that just kind of like ruins the experience in general. Whereas with this new system, you know, I would get put into a platinum lobby if I got filled ADC. So I could actually be much more competitive. It would make the role a lot more fun as well. You know, it's not going to completely fix people not enjoying certain roles. You know, I'm still not going to enjoy playing ADC. It's not really my jam. But it should hopefully be a lot more fair and a lot more fun if I get to play ADC in a platinum lobby, which is around where my skill is at, rather than being forced to play ADC in a Masters lobby and getting completely bodied. So yeah, really cool system in general, but I do feel like it could result in, you know, either long queue times or like if there's not enough players, just these systems will kind of fail. Obviously, as Smite 2 goes 24/7 and it's still buy to play, it's probably going to be a relatively small amount of players actually like grinding the game consistently. Once it goes 24/7, you'll have a much larger player base and these systems might work a little bit better. But I do feel like there's a lot of specific things to do here. You know, you're trying to give people not their like role 5, and you're also trying to match them based on this rating, and then you're also trying to like keep the primary ratings in a reasonable area as well. I feel like that's a lot of things to consider in the matchmaking algorithm. You know, will it result in longer queue times, or will these systems just fail sometimes when there's just not enough players in the queue to actually account for all of these things? It just creates a game anyway. Because as I mentioned before, that there is a breakpoint where matchmaking just says, fuck it, let's create a game with what we have. We can't keep these queues going on any longer. So yeah, I think it'll be interesting. With a large amount of players, these systems will work absolutely amazing. Especially, you know, the role queue system, if the roles were spread out more evenly, and then if we had loads of players, these systems would be absolute dreams. But I do feel like sometimes there might not be enough players to make these things work. We'll have to see though. This is what they have planned. We'll see how it works.
Then we use those role-specific ratings to inform our matchmaking. Looking back at Smite 1, we had a lot of matchups that seemed fine on paper. However, when we ran our new system against it, we found that those matchups were actually highly mismatched because a player of way higher skill level was matched up in the solo lane against a player of much lower skill level. This one mismatch can really throw off an entire game. And we're
Absolutely it can. Absolutely it can. That's like a really overlooked thing. People complain about matchmaking a lot all the time. And a lot of the time it is rightfully so. You know, matchmaking can be absolute shit sometimes. That's just how it is. But a lot of the time, well, sometimes it is just, you know, someone tilts or whatever, or they're having a bad day, and normally that would have been a 5 match. But also a lot of the time is that the individual matchups in each role are not balanced. So like overall, the team MMR might be balanced. You know, the average MMR of like team 1 might be like 2,000, and the average MMR of team 2 might be like 2,050. But then you could have one of two things happen. You could have, you know, there's like a 2,400 player on team 1 versus an 1,800 player on team 2 in the solo lane. That's going to cause a massive diff, and often you can just lose the game off of that. Or it could be that both players are 2,000, but player 1 is like 2,400 in their solo rating, and player 2 is like 1,500 in their solo rating, even though they're both 2,000 on average. And then that's going to cause a massive diff as well and cause problems. So like often a lot of the problems with matchmaking is this, where you just end up with these giant diffs in one role and the game becomes unwinnable because outside of the laning phase, you know, you can't really get to team fights because someone just gets completely bodied in their lane, goes like 0-6, and it's really hard to come back from that. And so with this new system, matching people based on their role and their individual role rating, I think it will make these games a lot more fair.
Trying our best to improve that for Smite 2. There's already an initial pass on a system that backfills players that don't connect to the God Select screen. This is a lobby that would have crashed in Smite 1 that we now seamlessly remake in Smite 2. It's my personal opinion that matchmaking is the most important out-of-game system to a game like Smite. It directly shapes the games that players get placed in and the experience that they have. And I'm excited to see what we can do with this new, responsive system in Smite 2, and I can't wait to see where it goes over the next few years. I'll see you on the battleground.
Yeah, he's exactly right. He's exactly right. Matchmaking is extremely important to the overall experience of the game. You know, the game being fun, the game being balanced, the game having lots of content is all great and very essential, but if the matches are completely unbalanced in a game like this that is designed inherently competitively, it's just not going to be a fun experience ever. And so hopefully a lot of these improvements will make Smite 2's matchmaking overall a ton better. And we've also got a little tweet thread from Max as well, Innocent Rabbit on Twitter if you want to follow him. He's like the data analyst at Hi-Res. And he's essentially going to break down what he said in the video in a little bit more detail. So the first thing mentioned is Smite 2's role preference system. Ranking all roles instead of just your top 2 gives us specific information about what exactly you want, alongside improvements to the sorting algorithm means you'll play your worst role nearly 10 times less often. So yeah, this is our graph from the video again, slightly different numbers. I think these are just not percentages, they're fractional instead. But yeah, you can see that, you know, it'd be 1 in 11 roughly, 1 in 11 games that you will get your least preferred role in Smite 1, whereas now it's going to go down to somewhere between 1 in 80-ish and 1 in 40-ish. So, you know, 1 in 60 we'll say, average those two out. It's gone from like roughly 1 in 10 to roughly 1 in 60. So that's going to be a major improvement. But yeah, as I said, I'm interested to see, maybe Max, if you're watching this video, I know some people at Hi-Res occasionally do watch the videos, and you know, this is his jam, so maybe he's watching the video. If you are watching, Max, I would be interested on data on how many people would rank support as role 5. You know, maybe we don't have that data yet because it's not really a thing in Smite 1, but once this system launches, I'm really interested in the data on how many people are ranking support role 5, because I feel like that could really throw a wrench in this whole system. Next is MOBA specific matchmaking. This is a brand new system we designed just for Smite, and admittedly a bit of a passion project. What we found was something Smite players intrinsically know. A player has a mathematically different skill level depending on which role they play. Yeah, 100%. So here's the general distribution of rating differences between player skill and role skill, and it forms a bell curve. So in general, the most common outcome is that there's no real difference between actual skill rating and role skill rating. But you know, you do have some of these outliers where it goes, you know, up to like 40 or 60 or whatever difference in terms of skill rating. And what the individual role ratings will do is they will smooth this out. They will make it much more likely that you're going to be very bang on because, you know, you're using your role rating instead of your overall rating. The system doesn't look at players and go, they will play this role, so use this rating. Instead, it treats players as a collection of different skill ratings, think power level overall versus like dex and strength and whatever, and uses that to understand the possible variance of the match. Based on Smite 1's matchmaking data, we ran a vast array of simulations using this format, and the results were really promising. More than anything, it heavily reduces the worst possible matches and slightly improves on the best possible matches. Left is good, and green is MSMM. And so yeah, basically it's the area over the curve, the value reflecting the team's cumulative score difference. So as you go further to the right, you've got more of a cumulative score difference based on the team. And so you can see Smite 1's matchmaking was kind of all over the place, but had a lot of outliers at these very high numbers of difference, you know, like 100 plus or whatever. And then you can see the red and the green are like 2 different systems that they were testing in Smite 2, I think. So the green one generally is better, of course. You're gonna have much less of a skill difference. And finally, the tech improvements are stuff I can't claim to understand. I'm just a data science guy, but there are some talented people working on systems like backfill, which, yeah, I think that's sort of, if people don't connect to a lobby, they'll immediately get thrown back into another pool and create matches from the backfill as well. So that should help in terms of like keeping queue times down and keeping, you know, people dodging, not interrupt like the matchmaking system as much. And it says, see you later to talk ranked. So yeah, hopefully we should be getting some ranked information pretty soon. You know, at the very least, we should get it on the full patch note show not next Wednesday, the Wednesday after next. But maybe we'll get a deep dive on it or something next week or whatever, a little bit before then to see what ranked is going to be all about. Forgot to mention, but it's worth making explicit, these systems will be rolled out over the course of closed alpha. For instance, the role preference system won't be active until a patch after 24/7. Going feature by feature lets us evaluate the impact on each one individually. So yeah, when 24/7 goes live at the end of this month, there probably will be an MMR and a matchmaking system. I can't imagine there won't be that, but like not all of these systems will be there immediately on the launch of that. It might be coming like a patch after or something. But yeah, this is really exciting stuff. I think this could definitely be a massive improvement. I do worry a little bit about the support issue in terms of like most people who support role 5. I feel like you're still going to get autofill support a lot of the time if you have it as role 5, or even if you have it as role 4 or whatever. Like I'll put support as role 4, and a lot of the time, you know, if it creates a lobby and everyone else on my team has support role 5, but I have it role 4, it's going to give it to me all the time. So I feel like I'm going to get support disproportionately a larger amount, just because I don't have it as role 5. So I think it'll be interesting. I'd love to see data on that, you know, how many people actually would put support as role 5. I feel like it's got to be at least half the player base. But yeah, I think it's going to be big improvements. Let me know down below, are you excited about this kind of stuff? And I will catch you guys for another one later on. Have a great day, and peace out, you nerds.